Welcome back to the Helpful Gardeners podcast. Today is a really cool day. We're not only doing garden court, and we've got a really cool topic to discuss this week, but also, Colin, check out your outfit.
Check it out, yo.
Yeah, we don't normally, but you're listening to this, we recorded this on Friday, and around here at Golden Acre, it is Hawaiian Shirt Friday, which, I mean, I'm not really,
No,
okay,
nobody,
I missed the memo.
You've missed the memo, like,
Every week? That's fine.
for 8 years?
Yeah. Not as coordinated. But you're wearing this awesome Hawaiian shirt, and I love it.
Yeah, I decided a while ago that I needed to do Hawaiian Shirt Friday, thinking maybe it would catch on. It has not, but I am still.
I think it's just like you go to work and you realize it's Pink Shirt Day, and you're like, crap.
Yep. I was downstairs, and I saw a dude come in wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And it was a Friday.
And it was a Friday.
Yep.
Did you tell him?
I was like, that is an awesome shirt. And he was like, I saw you wear yours on Global or on CTV. And he was like, I decided I wanted to match it. And I was like, bring it in. I didn't actually do that part, no.
Oh.
But I was
bring it in, just kidding.
Yeah, randomly hug customers, like, get over here. No, I didn't hug him. But I was super happy.
Yeah, no doubt.
I was like, you are awesome. And he had a big smile on his face.
Oh my gosh, just inspiring people to wear their Hawaiian shirts. Well,
it's bright, it's colorful, and I only wear them spring and summer. The moment autumn hits, the moment that equinox hits, they all go away for 2 seasons.
Oh yeah, you don't want to offend anybody.
No.
I'm loving these vibes though going into this week's episode because, in an episode where we're supposed to be very critical and fight, and you're just like, I'm rocking this Hawaiian shirt. We'll see how this goes.
Yep.
This week, though, we are talking all about curb appeal. And what got me thinking about this topic is because we actually have a neighbor across the street from us. And we were on Google to see what our house looked like.
Right, I remember that. Yeah,
right?
Because you were showing me the tree.
Exactly. We were like, what is this tree? What did our place look like when it was first, established, that kind of thing. And we look across the street and we're like, oh my gosh, is that the neighbor? Looked drastically different. They have a lot of overgrown, so a lot of sucker growth that have kind of popped up out of the tree. The roof is looking a little worse for wear. There's a lot of, debris and that kind of thing. And, coming from our background of gardening and everything and landscaping, I'm like, oh man, I see the suckers. I could go over there and I can just snip them off, right, and clean things up a little bit. And all these things go through your mind. And I'm thinking to myself, do I have a right to do that though? And that's what got me thinking about doing this for this week's garden court and kind of diving more into what curb appeal is, how important is it, what curb appeal means to certain people, why someone might not take as much care in their curb appeal, and also easy ways that you can increase your curb appeal that are low cost. Let's start talking about, first of all, kind of defining what curb appeal is, because you may not even know what curb appeal is. So essentially it is the attractiveness of a property for sale, but it also has a lot of other benefits. And it's landscaping, the front entrance, the condition, the paint, the siding, everything on the exterior portion of your house is considered curb appeal, can be seen from the curb of the house.
Curb appeal it's a big spectrum.
Is it?
It's a very large spectrum, and it can get emotional.
Have you actually heard or seen confrontation between neighbors or?
I've never been involved. Okay, let me just say that 100%. I have never been involved, stuck in the middle, anything like that. But I have absolutely heard things. But I've also heard things that you might not believe.
Oh.
Yeah. Gardens are too landscaped. They are too over the top.
Oh.
The siding is too expensive. The roofing is too new.
Interesting.
Because somebody pulls up and they look at that and they go, I'm not a gardener, so on top of buying this house, I now have to hire landscapers. If there's a problem, I can't afford to replace that siding.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I never thought about the other side of the spectrum.
That's what I'm saying. When we think, I think for the average person, when you think curb appeal, you think cut grass, little flower bed in the front, couple of pots, hanging basket, hey presto, away you go.
Yeah.
But there's also the people that are like, well, I don't care about any of that. I'll clean it up when and if I sell.
Yeah.
There's people that are like, curb appeal to me is just lawn to the house and that's it. No weeds, grass is cut short. Other people are like, no, lawn appeal is this jungle, this garden and pots. And so that's curb appeal. There's parameters involved.
Yeah. Have you ever had a neighbor pay for landscaping on another neighbor's property?
Nope. But we've because we've had people suggest it, and we're like, we're not doing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you've said no.
Yeah, well, I am not. If you go get the consent and give that person a contract, and they sign it, and we will go over and do the work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go on somebody else's property and say, I don't know what they're doing.
Can you imagine if that would happen though?
I'm sure it has.
That would make you feel so uncomfortable. You're like, hey, I've shown up to landscape this thing, and they're like, I didn't ask for you.
Exactly. And no problem. Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to tell somebody else how their house should look. I don't know what is going on in their life. I really don't. So for me, I don't really care. You do your house. I don't care. And I've seen it. I've seen houses connected and the gardens identical. We've landscaped them.
Yeah.
Okay, we did one house. The neighbor loved it. They said, can you do mine? We said, yeah. Easier maintenance, not a problem. We also did one house, and I think I've mentioned this before. If half of my foot went onto the neighbor's property line, he came out and screamed at us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
there's a spectrum here that we're going to talk about, I think. And that's what I think makes this topic so I guess challenging, because you're right. It is a very like personal aesthetic.
Yep.
And it is also impacting one of the biggest investments of your net worth. Is like, it's your house that you have bought. And if you are in an HOA, then there are like specific guidelines that are set out from higher beings, and those are legally binding. But there's also, if you're on like a freehold, your investment is based on not only what your property looks like, but what the whole entire neighborhood looks like. So why curb appeal is so important to you is first impressions obviously matter. So buyers will often form their first impression within seconds of seeing your home. I definitely noticed that when we were looking for homes. It was like, you'd see the first picture and you'd be like, nah, and move on, right? Higher appraisal values can also be impacted. Faster sales. So if you have really good curb appeal, then realtors will say like your property will tend to sell faster. Increased buyer interest, more attractive. You could lead to bidding wars. And then your ROI, so your return on investment, will go up if you have specific upgrades to your house that maybe sets you apart from another house that's in the same community.
Yep.
A lot of this is all about the selling portion of the house. I also love this. It also encourages community pride. So if you're taking care of your property, you see everybody else is taking care of their property, then that can almost be like, hey, I feel pride to live here. But it can also create a little bit of stress to be like, hey, I now need to keep up with this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And financial and physical stress.
Yeah.
Right? You're a senior or you're single.
Yeah.
Whatever the case might be, and you do not have the time or the finances or the physical ability to keep up. In this day and age, so many people feel like there's cameras on them all the time, and yours is the only house that isn't maintained and pretty and done up like the rest of them. You have neither the time nor the money to do it, but now you're feeling guilty and stressed about it.
100%. You're just like trying to get by, and you're like, well, it's low on the priority list, but right. However, it can also deter crime. So clean, attractive streets can signal that people are paying attention, but also having just a good curb appeal and clean curb appeal can also support mental health and well-being, makes you feel safe, makes you feel pride, makes you feel like, oh, okay, this is clean.
Don't get me wrong. Like we did some pretty exceptional gardens, and people wanted like a lot of people were when we did the landscaping. They loved their garden, but they also wanted everybody else to love their garden. There was absolutely kind of like it wasn't unheard of to see this, and again, this comes with money. People would see it, okay, and this absolutely happened to us. So. We would look after the garden. People would pull up, curb appeal, they buy the house. Okay? They sell the house. Then we have to go talk to them and be like, are you interested in keeping the contract? And a number of times they would be like, yes, I am, but I want you to rip all of this garden out.
Oh.
I don't like
Interesting.
it.
I've never heard that.
I want it changed to be my garden.
Oh, wow. Oh, like they
So,
wanted their
yep.
own kind of brand.
I want the lawn gone and I want a patio there. Exactly. They wanted to change it. So it meant nothing to them.
Yeah.
The curb appeal was, I don't care. Like, okay, it's well maintained, but I'm going to do whatever I want anyway. And then again, on the other side of the spectrum, right now in Calgary, in my neighborhood, if a house sells more than, I think in my neighborhood, one house has sold recently and another house went up. Mm-hmm. The vast majority are being sold and they just rip apart everything and put in an infill.
Isn't that so interesting?
So why am I going to landscape? Because they come in with bulldozers, they come in with everything. There's nothing left. It is a construction site, and then they just rebuilt.
That's a very good point. If you're in one of those areas and you're like, I mean, my mom's going through it right now. She lives in Highland Park, and she.
Okay, yeah.
I think the street is about 50-50 right now of infills and of older homes, right?
Yep.
The house next to her is about to go down. And my parents, this house is like, this is like asbestos old.
Oh my God, that's a great unit of time.
Sound clip made.
Yeah.
And it's essentially like she's grappling with the fact of like, there is so much wrong with the house. Like foundationally, there is the risk of asbestos.
Yep.
There is the, the leaky basement. She's got cracks in the walls. Like there's a lot of stuff. Like the driveway is just in shambles. She's like, do I spend the time to do this? Because there are renters on the street, right? Or do I just say, hey, go to the next door and just be like, hey, you want to buy this house too? Right. So that is a very valid point. It's like, does the curb appeal really matter to you if you're in one of those communities where it's just going to be torn down and something new put up?
It's going to be torn down or somebody's going to come and do what they want anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Because some clients of ours were moving and it was getting closer to moving day and she came up to me and she was like, can you tell me what plants we can dig out and bring? She's like, these plants are amazing. They're so mature. Mm-hmm. They're so healthy. We've looked after them for so long. And I don't know who's going to move in here. And I don't know how they're going to care for them. Mm-hmm. And we'll put other plants in. We'll make it look pretty. But I really want to take my plants.
Oh, that's so cute. That's so interesting you say that because my mom is actually thinking about taking some of her perennials. She's like, well, the house is going to get bulldozed anyway, so we might as well take what we can. So currently, she's moving in with us. We got a rhubarb coming. We got potentially a rose coming. We've got some bulbs coming. She's got a whole bunch of really cool, some of them like native, so they're doing really well. And obviously, have been living in her space for long.
Take them.
That's such a good idea, though. I like that.
That's where, because the front of the house is kind of like your best foot forward.
Yeah.
Right? You're coming for an interview. If I was coming to Golden Acres today to interview, I probably wouldn't roll up in this. Maybe I would. I mean, I'm slightly different. But I'd probably wear, more just like a taupe linen shirt. Something very run-of-the-mill. Hey, look at that. Blah, blah, blah. Because I'm maintaining that curb appeal where I'm presentable, but I'm not OTT, but I'm also not coming in like my slouch T-shirt where I spilt my ramen noodles and my fudgesicle on it, and it's got Jimmy hair on it. And
I mean,
like,
true enough, because I mean that is such a good analogy because that reflects your work ethic in a way, right?
So I'm like, how am I coming? Am I coming being like I'm loud, I'm brash?
Yeah.
Am I coming being like, I don't give a damn, like this is who I am? Like, you're not hiring the shirt, yo.
No, you know what I wore? I was 15 when I applied here, and I wore I was first ever job. Okay, don't judge me.
That chip sale.
I was like, oh, I'm applying at a garden center. I'm gonna come dressed as a plant. So I wore brown pants.
No, you did.
I did. And I wore a green shirt with little flowers on it. And I was like, I look like a plant. They're going to totally hire me.
And they did.
But I don't think anyway, but the thought was there though, right? So like the effort that you're putting in there is sort of, and that's exactly another good point. Is like good curb appeal can also be sort of like a hint as to what the inside of the house can look like. Has things been taken care of? And maybe for those people who maybe they were kind of fascinated by the curb appeal with the full intention of ripping things out, but they were like, okay, things look really good on the outside, so therefore must have good bones on
Yep.
the inside.
You know, as much as I do my best to not do it, okay, but we're all guilty of it. You can't help but kind of like make that snap judgment when you see what somebody's wearing.
Totally.
I have also met in my time, I have met some hardcore gardeners where you go inside and you're like, your garden is cleaner than your home.
Interesting.
Muddy footprints, dust on everything, plants piled up. The plants have got fungus gnats and powdery mildew because they've brought it in from the garden. And you're like, damn, your outside is like 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So I just, when I've seen as much as I have seen through landscaping and talking to people and meeting weirdos and meeting gardeners, I'm just like, do you, man?
Yeah.
Like, again, so do you know what I always, you know, we've said this since, my God, GA Kids TV time. Most important thing for me is the curb appeal should be what makes you and Brad smile.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting point to get into is sort of who dictates what good curb appeal is. Because we know that it is all about the attractiveness. However, attractiveness is very subjective.
100%. Yep.
And so I thought I would kind of look into how this is like under various lenses. And so, you know, good curb appeal balances personal expression, neighborhood harmony, and also property value. So there's a few different factors. So there are actual local government and municipal codes that may be set in your region. So, for example, I went into the city of Calgary. Now, examples of this can be like grass at a certain height, which I think is weird.
It's not like a fixed height, but it's basically like you can't have it.
You can't be Jumanji in there. And no junk cars on the lawn, no peeling paint on your house or whatever. And so I went into what Calgary does, and they actually have a land use bylaw that is all about curb appeal, landscaping, basically maintaining a very well-maintained and attractive environment. So some of the key regulations in this are landscaping. So a minimum percentage of a parcel must be landscaped with specific rules for different types of development. So a multi-residential development, I would imagine a lot of like home builders have to follow this. Minimum of 40% must be landscaped, and a portion of that must be soft surface. So when you were doing landscaping, did you find that there was like, did you do new developments?
No.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Cause like, I wasn't sure if that was a home builder that did it or if they got landscapers.
We did. I said no. We did some, but we never worked with the builder.
Yeah.
Somebody would come, they would buy the home, then they would bring us in to change it because it was just sod with a tree in the middle of, that standard development model.
Yeah.
So we would come in, but it was through the homeowner, not through the building company.
But interesting how there was sort of like a standard of like, there is lawn and one tree. Cause like if you go into the newer communities in Calgary, at least, you always see that there is some kind of lawn and tree going on. Like there's almost like you can sense there's a minimum requirement,
an elm,
right?
Birch.
And they're still trying to do it as like cost efficient as possible. But that's why it's just crazy. You go into the older neighborhoods and there's just beautiful trees everywhere and it looks great.
Gardens and
love it. And then you go into the newer communities and there is like bare minimum.
Because they are following the letter of the law.
Exactly, which is this.
And here's the other argument. Again, though, that's curb appeal.
Yeah.
Right? Because so if it was me, if I was buying a brand new development, I would probably ask them, can you not plant the tree?
Oh, interesting.
Can you not put down the sod? Like not even to save the money, like leave the pallet of sod, maybe I'll use it. Or put it down until I get to the landscape. Because if I'm, like we said when you bought your house, what do? Well, the first thing you do is take care of the inside.
Yeah.
If I'm buying a brand new house, I've got to assume the inside is pretty A-okay.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty sure I'm not walking in being like, I got to paint it. Oh my God, there's a
take
crack
out that
in the
whole wall.
Yeah, exactly. It's new. I'm felt. So that means I have the time to look at the outside. Why do I want them to put in a tree? Because, most of them, you got your parcel of land, and where do they put the tree? Bang smack in the middle, right in front of the main window.
And maybe you don't get to choose what type of tree it is.
Exactly. So you're like, oh, that's wonderful. So I've either got to cut this down, transplant it. Maybe I want that tree in my backyard. Maybe I want my front yard more open.
Yeah.
So I would probably try and tweak it
a
little bit, because you know that they're going 40% landscaped, tree adds value.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming them. They're doing, they're mass producing.
Yeah.
So they're just getting it out there. They're not landscapers. They don't claim to be landscapers. They're house builders.
Yeah.
I wouldn't claim to be a house builder. So that was kind of where I would be like, yeah, okay, you guys are following the letter of the law. Can you just leave it for me?
Yeah. There's also yard maintenance around this bylaw.
Okay.
So the lawns are kept neat and well maintained. Grass typically not exceeding 6 inches in height.
Okay.
Which is how, I don't know inches.
Well, that shovel, so... This is a very handy tool.
Wow.
That's probably about, 5 or 6. I don't really know either, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
So
give or take.
Yeah, that would be pretty tall. I could see that being an issue. Residents are responsible for maintaining their property, including adjacent areas like boulevards, sidewalks, and lanes. I mean, if you have like a crack in your sidewalk, I feel like that would be the city. But still, you have like a minimum, and there's not actually like a lot to
I think what
this.
the maintenance there means is like not the cracked concrete. I think so this always drives me nuts. Tiny little things, right? But the guy who taught me, Simon, have you ever seen anybody finish like landscaping and then they fire the blower?
Yeah.
And they go, "Hoo,"
yeah.
And then they just leave it all blown over the sidewalk in the street?
Yeah.
It looks terrible.
So that's more so.
So what Simon would have us do is when we did that, we would then put the blower on low, walk down the sidewalk, blow it onto the road, then go onto the road and blow it into the curb.
Oh, okay.
So it's finished immaculate.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you've got the sidewalk slabs, you know how they've got like the frost swell cut between them?
Uh-huh.
If weeds are growing in there, we would take the trimmer and we would rip the weeds out of the sidewalk. So just clean it up.
Yeah.
Just those little finishing touches so that the sidewalk isn't covered in leaves, not covered in dirt. You didn't just blow stuff on there and you take care of some of the weeds.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Also, there's regulations around vehicle parking. So making sure that, and I didn't think about this. I mean, we're gardeners. I wouldn't really think about the cars, but ensuring vehicles are registered, insured, operable, and parked properly. So if they're too close to driveways, curbs, or garages, that can result in penalties.
Okay.
Obstructions. So things like electrical cords, hoses, materials, hedges, trees, and shrubs, they need to be trimmed to avoid interfering with pedestrians and traffic. I did not realize that.
Yep.
I didn't know that was a thing. And I can tell you there's like a lot of kind of trees around my neighborhood that are definitely impacting sidewalks. I didn't know it was against the law.
I think a lot of these, they're not against the law. I could be wrong, okay? I don't work for the city. I'm not a lawyer or anything like that. I don't interpret bylaws for a living.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of these are kind of like catch-alls.
Yeah.
Okay, so... say your tree is coming out on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I call the city. I don't think the city are rolling up and throwing fines at you. I think the city are rolling up and going, we've received a complaint about that tree. Can you trim it back from the sidewalk?
Yeah. You know what's interesting, though, is the next one is encroachments, and I actually had to deal with this.
Did you?
I don't think I
recently?
ever... Yeah, I didn't actually tell you this.
No, you didn't.
So when we bought our house, there was an encroachment clause, and there isn't a city's encroachment bylaw, which essentially says... there's penalties for unauthorized modifications or building beyond property lines.
Okay, yeah.
So driveways, like anything in the back. So essentially what we got hit with was there was a shed in the backyard that was there when we bought it.
Yeah, your garden shed we're talking about here. Okay.
So that is encroaching on some kind of like utility line by the back fence. And then there's also in the front, there was this like property line that was made out of stone and it goes right to the road. And that was also encroaching slightly.
Is that the one that kind of shares your neighbor's side? Yeah,
exactly. So it was slightly encroaching. So we actually ended up buying the place, and then a sort of like clause for us to like when we buy the place is that we had to go through encroachment and figure out, okay, like, do we have to pay money for this? Like to get it figured out and to like basically redraw the property line. So the homeowners before us had to pay they actually had to pay an amount of money though, which I thought was interesting. So some of these, like, I feel like you're right, are guidelines and sort of based on a by case basis, but there's also some things where you may even have to.
Well, and the thing that, so say, I don't know who does the power lines, NMAX? Say ACO, I don't know who does power
I don't know
lines.
either.
Okay.
We don't actually have power lines.
Okay, so say the person comes in, they're like, hey, encroachment.
We need to get under the ground.
Yeah. And your shed's there, and they go, you have to move it. Now, just say there's no fine, nothing is going to happen. But now you have to pay people to come and move that shed because it's not right. Or you got to find friends who are willing to do it. Then you move it. It might damage the shed. It could buckle or break. You move it. All the ground under it is now dead and compact. So now you have to fix that up before you can put sod. Where you're putting the shed, now you have to prep it. There is a massive hassle. Everything in there. And that's the easiest scenario.
Yes, and that's basically what they said. They said if there's ever utility work that needs to be done there, then you have to move it. So there was
you and Brad shouldn't have to pay for that. So I feel that nothing would have happened. Something happens where they have to do the work and you're like, I put the shed there. You've got nobody to blame but yourself. Can you help me move my shed?
Yes.
But when you buy it in good faith and it's not done, then so stuff like that, absolutely. You can look at legal things.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, where do you get to challenge the city? The city go, your lawn has to be 6 inches.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, that's not lawn. Those are native bunch grasses.
Yeah.
I'm not cutting them back lower than 6 inches. That's actually a native perennial grass bed.
And I feel like, I mean, that would be a case-by-case basis too.
Exactly.
But
And I feel like the city, they're probably sending out educated people.
Yeah.
There's probably a complaint. I don't think the city have the resources, the time, or the desire to drive around going, who can we find? I've worked with the city. I've worked with multiple municipalities. They're always painted in a bad light. They're really not the bad guys.
No.
Have you ever tried to keep one household in harmony? It can be a nightmare. They're trying to keep 1.4 million people in harmony.
It's true.
They're doing the best they can.
They're trying to balance, and everything that we've been saying up until now, it's like the protecting of your investment while also protecting the harmony of the community, right? So it's kind of finding the middle ground, right? Actually, can we talk about that reason someone may be lacking their curb appeal? Because that's the thing. You've said it this entire episode. You really don't know what's going on the other side of the fence, right?
Yeah, and that's perfectly worded.
Yeah. So number one, you've said it before, health or physical limitations. So somebody could be dealing with a disability, a chronic illness, mobility issues, and they may lack the ability to maintain the property. Maybe they want to, but they don't know if they can. There's also financial constraints. So, we know landscaping, plants, repairs, upkeep, it can be extremely expensive. If you're a single mom and you're just trying to get going, that can be expensive and you just don't have the funds to do it, right?
And we've said that before. If you have to choose between putting food on the table for your kid or getting the lawnmower fixed.
Yes.
If those are your two choices, chances are that grass is getting longer.
Exactly. Number 3, mental health challenges, depression, anxiety, that can really drain your energy or motivation to do home maintenance. And like the list just keeps going up. We know how much it is to maintain a house. And, I'm very thankful. I've got Brad and myself. We work really good as a team. But I mean, as soon as we have our baby, it's like, I guaranteed like that'll be lower on the priority list, right?
100%. Things slip.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling to keep yourself and the inside of your house clean and healthy and hygienic, again, that grass is probably getting longer.
Exactly. More than 6 inches. Bring the city over. No, I'm just kidding.
You're like the last. That's right. So.
Okay, number 4, life transitions. Okay, so there you go. Divorce, death in the family, job loss. All of this can just push all of that home maintenance to the priority.
That's a hell of a transition.
100%. You just don't have the bandwidth to do that. You're not looking at, the outside of your house. You're trying to, just handle everything internally. This is interesting. Different priorities or values. Some homeowners just don't place enough in their exterior spaces, right? They don't realize how others perceive it. I don't know if your neighborhood is kind of like this, but I know some neighborhoods are like, I don't even know my neighbors. Like, people don't talk.
We are friendly with our neighbors, but we don't know our neighbors. We see them, we'll offer them veggies if we grow them, we'll say hi, we shovel the walk.
Yeah.
Not 100% certain what their names are.
Yeah, we're not going to be like, hey, so I noticed your tree. No, we're not going to do that. Lack of time. So if you have work schedules, young children, other obligations, little time for yard work. I know we struggle with that a lot working at a garden center, right?
In the spring. Yep.
Lack of tools or knowledge. You literally touched on it before. You were saying, well, I don't know what's a tree, right? So you may have bought the house and you're like, I don't have tools. I don't have the know-how. I know you even mentioned a while ago that you saw somebody who was planting a tree and you kind of questioned, hey, should I go over there and tell them that they're planting it wrong?
Yeah.
That's sort of like lack of tools or knowledge, right? What do you do in that situation? Do you wait until you have a good enough, relationship with that person to say something? Or do you let it go? Right? But like maybe they just don't know. And that's okay too, because that's what this podcast is for even, right? And then also conflict or stubbornness. And I hate this one because it's like, passive aggressive, but like some people just will do it as like the
neighbors who planted red flowers.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, absolutely. But that's okay. So there's a few there that can't be helped, right? If you don't know that it's impacting others, maybe you want to know.
Yeah.
Right. I can be guilty of that. I'm not aware that what I'm doing or the way I word things, because I'll say things and sometimes they can come across as like harsh or whatever else. But if somebody said that to me, I would find it incredibly funny or like, oh, okay, thank you for getting to the point.
Yeah.
Somebody else is like, dude, you're extremely harsh. And I go, oh, okay, now I can either incorporate it or not.
Yeah.
I try to. But, and then conflict is conflict. I ain't even wading in on that one. But the rest of them is that they have no idea. They know their garden is out of control. They don't know how to bring it back. They don't have the money, the time, a newborn baby, whatever, mental health. And the difference you could make by being like, I'll give you a hand.
Yeah.
Well, I'm out doing my garden. Why don't I come over? I'll bring my kid over. You can make a new friend. You can make a new neighbor. You could start something.
Yeah.
And all of this is about curb appeal and how we want to be perceived. I'd rather people perceive me as somebody that I give a damn about you. I don't really give a damn about your yard, but if you want me to help you with your yard, I'm in.
I always find it's really interesting too when you have like an indirect opportunity. So for example, our next door neighbor had some car troubles. And so that would have been a really good opportunity to be like, hey, I noticed you had some car troubles. Can I help out kind of thing? Oh, my wife works at a garden center. She's really good at landscaping if you need some help in the yard.
Yep.
Using like just not going over there and being like, knock, 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 and be like, so I noticed your yard has been really bugging me.
Exactly.
I feel like if you were to come across like that seems very like
But I think that's where the conflict starts.
Exactly. I
right?
feel like nobody takes the time to be like, get to know you, build a good relationship. And I mean, whatever happened to having good relationships with our neighbors, right?
Well, when I was a kid, okay, so granted, England, Canada, I don't know what it was like in Canada. Everybody on our street knew everybody. Now, they didn't all get along. And we absolutely had the old curmudgeon down the street. Get off my lawn! And we had the wingnuts over on the other side, the weirdo eccentric people, and all of the characters that make a neighborhood we had in our neighborhood. But damn near everybody knew everybody, and everybody looked out for everybody. One of the neighbors needed help bringing down a tree or moving their greenhouse. Neighbors would come and help them, right? Even, they may not be your best friend, but, oh, you need help? They'd go over and help. And I don't know. I don't know where that is lost. I mean, I've talked about it as well. And it was one of my resolutions. I'm not doing it this year. If I see somebody struggling in their garden, I'm approaching them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to figure out a way to do it. I'm going to be extremely, hey, zero judgment. I don't really care. Do you want me to help you or not?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're planting that too deep. It will die.
Yeah.
You want to tell me to piss off so it can die? See ya.
Yeah.
You want me to get it to the right level? Happy to do it and teach you.
Yeah.
So I've decided that's my approach. I've seen it happen twice in my neighborhood. It's not happening a third time because I didn't know how to approach it. But if my neighbor needs help, I want them to know that, hey, that guy always waved. That guy always smiled. That guy always says, I see him out with his dog.
Yeah.
And I want them to come and knock on my door.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I think we're missing that. Too many times people we're so focused on curb appeal and I'm going to call the city and I'm going to do this because I am right.
Oh my gosh. I actually don't like that when people hide behind the bylaw. And it's kind of like what you were saying a few weeks ago where, what was it? Somebody came up and complained about something at your yard or whatever. And then they can't say who called because it's like a breach of privacy.
Yeah.
But you're like, hey, why didn't they just come up and like talk to me about it? Right. Because
100%.
I feel like people don't take the time to lay the foundation work of being approachable and, you know, and being like, oh, hey, like that guy does this sort of thing. He can probably help out if you need any help, because that creates community, right? It doesn't impede. So control what you can control, and what you're not controlling what other people do with their curb appeal, right? If you really care about curb appeal, in my opinion, then take care of your own curb appeal and then build the relationships with your neighbors to be approachable and to be like, hey, if you need help, then I can do that for you, right? That takes time, obviously. But if my neighbor across the street has, you know, some overgrown bushes or whatever, we're probably going to look for an opportunity to be like, hey, do you need some help? Because as we've mentioned, there are multiple reasons why somebody's curb appeal might not be ideal or lacking, and you just don't know what's going on, right?
You want to hear something funny? Jenny's out. She's walking Jimmy and kind of, oh, look at this neighborhood. Oh, look at this. And she's gone longer than I assumed she'd be gone, and that's fine. Jenny likes to, you know, look at everything and see everything. Anyway, of course, we've been there 2 days. Jenny's already made friends with the neighbors.
I knew that's where this was going.
And she's like, the neighbor, they have a beautiful garden. I was like, oh, nice. She's like, they're having problems with a tree. And I was like, she's like, I told them you are a horticulturist, and if they see you, they could ask. And I was like, thanks, honey. No.
Yes.
Anyway.
You know, I know that, like you said, every street's kind of got that one person who is a little unfavorable, maybe a little too impatient, or has a little too opinionated.
If you don't have that person on your street, you are that person.
And that can always be really tough to deal with too, right? Because, I mean, you do your best. And with all the things that we've mentioned on today's episode, you know, and that just doesn't reach those kinds of people. And that's really tough too to deal with, right?
Curb your enthusiasm on my curb appeal.
I've come up with a song for this episode. There you go.
Okay.
Anyway, well, that wraps us up for this week's episode. Thanks for clicking on this podcast and listening to us bicker. Well, we didn't really bicker. We just had a really good, healthy conversation about curb appeal.
That was more like garden
therapy,
court of appeals or something.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't like either side were both like, I'm prepared to come to that agreement.
What are those mediation?
Yeah.
We don't need a judge on this one. We just needed
to mediate.
A good medium platform to discuss it. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. We are the Helpful Gardeners Pod over there. We are also on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and we'd love to hear what you think about curb appeal. Have you noticed anything happening on your yard? Have you had an interaction with a neighbor about curb appeal? Do you find that curb appeal is important? We'd love to know your opinion, so reach out on the comments below. And we're going to be doing a whole bunch of fun stuff coming up in May. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a sneak peek heads up, we're going to be talking about lawns. We're going to be talking about tea. That's coming up with Mother's Day coming up. So we have a lot of really fun spring content. We're also kind of gearing up for a really cool project that we're doing at Golden Acre in the next few weeks that we're really excited about. So a little teaser there, but we'll get you in more on the details about that coming up. We're not quite ready to spill the beans.
Not yet.
No, so not yet. Not yet. But we look forward to having more spring fun with you next week on the Helpful Gardeners Podcast. Bye.
Bye, everyone.